මාධ්‍ය සංවිධාන සියල්ලම මේ පනතට විරුද්ධයි. ඒ අයට මේක සාකච්ඡා කරන්න වෙලාවක්වත් දීලා නැහැ. අනිත් එක 2015ට කලින් මාධ්‍යවේදීන් 15ක් විතර ඝාතනය වෙච්ච ආණ්ඩුවේ උරුමකාරීන්ට මේ වගේ බලතල දුන්නොත් මාධ්‍යවේදීන්ගේ විනාශය බව
මේ පනත යෝජනා වුණේ 2019 ගරු කතානායකතුමනි මාර්තු මාසයේ. 2019 ඉඳන් අද වෙනකොට 7 වතාවක් පබ්ලික් කන්සල්ටේෂන් වලට මේ පනත ඉදිරිපත් කළා තියෙනවා. ඒ විතරක් නෙවෙයි ICT එක ඇතුළු තාක්ෂණ අමාත්‍යාංශයේ වෙබ්සයිට් එකේ මේ පනත සම්බන්ධයෙන් සම්පූර්ණ දත්තයන් සඳහන් කරලා ගරු කතානායකතුමනි පබ්ලික් එකට අවස්ථාව දීලා තිබ්බා 2019 මාර්තු මාසයේ ඉඳන් අද වෙනකන් ඔවුන්ගේ අදහස් යෝජනා ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න. ඉතින් එහාට අපි යමු ගරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමනි. උසාවිය යන සති දෙකක් තිබ්බනේ. හැබැයි ඒ සති දෙක ඇතුළත මේ කිසි කෙනෙක් උසාවියට ගියේ නැහැ. උසාවියේ දෙන්නෙක් නඩු දැම්මා දින 14 පැනලා. පනත පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ විවාද වෙන්න කලින් දවසේ කතා කරලා කියනවා නම් මේකට අපි විරුද්ධයි මෙන්න මේ හේතු කියලා. මේ අවුරුදු එකමාරක් තිස්සේ තමන්ගේ විරෝධතාවය ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න තිබිච්ච අය ඒකෙන්ම පැහැදිලි මේ පනත සම්බන්ධයෙන් අවබෝධයක් නැති කාරණය. ඒ වගේම තමයි මේ පනත සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඔවුන්ට තරම් වුමනාවක් නැහැ ගරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමනි.
There are three specific concerns that have been raised by journalists and media persons as well as activists in the field of right to information. One is there are certain restrictions that have been applied with regard to how journalists can access and use media, especially when processing data, and the restrictions that are applied for media to actually use data for reporting. The other concern is the independence of the Data Protection Authority. Currently, all powers of the authority, including appointing members to the authority, come under the minister. There is a great possibility that the Data Protection Authority can be used for political purposes. For instance, it is not a judicial body, but it has powers for investigation. It has powers to impose penalties. There are also legitimate fears that have been raised with regard to the impact on right to information. If you look at the Act, it says, in the event of any inconsistency between the provisions of this Act and the provisions of such written law, the provisions of this Act shall prevail. So that suggests that this Act overrides or prevails over all other existing Acts. This bill is necessary. There is no argument about that. There are legitimate fears that this bill can infringe on the right to expression and also on the right to information.
On implementation of the Data Protection Agency will put the regulations under section 43 of the Act. That will be also published on media and also brought into the Parliament. The regulations can be drafted in a way that will not override the Right to Information Act.
This is a salutary move, but if the government has proposed committee stage amendments today, and there are many amendments that have been proposed, which indicates even last minute the government itself is moving amendments. And I might mention one which was a concern, and the government is actually removing that. In clause 28, we found a very strange provision. It says the minister may, by order published in the Gazette, designate a public corporation, statutory body or any other institution established by or under any written law and controlled by the government, explicitly stating controlled by the government. But I find that in the proposed committee stage amendments that have been given to us, that phrase has been left out, and that's a welcome thing. If that is what is happening, that's a good thing. Why can't the other concerns that have been raised also taken into account and dealt with?
Most of these concerns are not really founded because there is nothing called journalistic rights. In this country, journalist rights and the people's right, freedom of expressions are one and the same. Journalist doesn't have a special right, anything beyond that. They have certain amount of privileges. The opposition members, they all agree this is a necessary piece of legislation on infrastructure which is necessary in the digital era for us to protect our privacy, for people to protect their privacy. Countries like France, Germany, England and even in US, this data had been used to go against the will of the people and to create a difference of a public opinion using this technology with Cambridge Analytica and the infamous cases and all we know.
We are talking about the protection of the citizen and the protection of the data of the citizen. My concern was wider, protection from government, not which government, but protection from government. Because sometimes states can become autocratic over time and you can have autocratic leaders. But actually there is no mechanism, and I'm looking at this also on the background of the principle of the 19th Amendment. There were mechanisms. So the president or the minister can appoint, propose the name, nominate the name, they can appoint, but there were independent mechanisms to check on the persons.
We have moved on from the 19th Amendment. There were discussions, we all know, and we all know what happened during the 19th Amendment. Unfortunately, when you have 2-3 power centers, what happened? And I think we are all suffering today of the foundation of that kind of a foundation which we had. There were good things also. But somebody has to appoint, and we have laid down their powers and their qualifications. You can't appoint anyone from anywhere, and their roles and the regulations and the powers have been defined, and whatever the regulation what they are going to draft, rules rather, have to be published in Gazette, and minister has to approve that, and it has to come to the parliament, and thereafter parliament has to approve it. So there is no authoritarian power being given to this particular authority.